Hello everyone, my name is Nathan, and welcome to another speedpaint video. This time, I thought I would create something cute for Pride featuring my fursona Nan. Of course, it will no longer be June by the time you see this. In fact, it's not even June right now as I record this, but I did finish it before June ended, so it still counts. Plus, editing and recording takes time, so yeah, this is a bit late. Speaking of recording, you might have noticed that my voice sounds a bit different this time. That's because my gaming headset broke a couple of months ago, and I've been too busy and lazy to bother replacing it. Normally I use the built-in microphone to record these voiceovers, but that doesn't really work if the headphones won't stay on your head, so I'm using my computer's mic instead, which is less than ideal. But I figured it would be important for this video to talk to you directly, because I actually have quite a lot to talk about, and the things I want to talk about feel too important to just be written out in floating text. Because, as you may or may not have already guessed, I am not a heteronormative person. Like at all. And while I haven't exactly been hiding that, I have also not been very upfront about it either. And I think it's high time that I change that. And since I decided to include some sexualities that I personally identify with in this artwork, in the form of LGBTQ flag colors, I felt like it would be disingenuous of me to not explain what those sexualities are and what they mean. To be clear, this is not intended as an in-depth video on the topic, because trust me, I could go into a lot more detail about sexuality, terms, and the nature of human identity, but that's a bit beyond the scope of this video, so instead I'm just going to be focusing on basic definitions and my own personal experiences. And I want to be very upfront about these things because I want this channel to be LGBTQIA positive. Yeah, that's right, we're including all the letters now. In all seriousness though, as a creator, I think it's really important to use your voice on a platform to speak for people that don't have the luxury of doing so themselves. And while the queer community is growing bigger and more vocal by the day, there's still a lot of people that wish to silence them. So I want to use my voice, however small it may be, to support people of all kinds, including members of the queer community. I also refuse to contribute to the echo chamber by dancing around certain subjects or tolerating xenophobic behavior of any kind, including queerphobia. If you have a problem with that, or anything else I'm about to say, you can leave now. There are plenty of channels like that already, and you are welcome to go and watch them if you don't like what you're about to hear. But if you do stick around, you better be prepared to treat other people with respect and compassion, and to have an open mind on things, because I sure as hell ain't normal, and the things I create certainly won't be either. Got it? Good. Let's get started. Now the first sequence of colors I want to draw your attention to is the one smack dab in the center. Specifically, the black, gray, white, and purple bandana Nan is wearing. These are the colors of the asexual flag, representing a sexual orientation that is both the easiest to explain and the easiest to misunderstand. To be clear, people who identify as asexual do not feel sexually attracted to others. Nothing more and nothing less. It does not necessarily mean that we don't want to be in a relationship, or even that sex is off the table. It just means we don't look at people and think, I'd totally pork them. For me, being ace has always been something that I've intuitively known about, but never really knew the word for. To this day, I've never had any crushes, and I have no interest in sex of any kind. But it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that. In the end, the thing that finally did it was listening to someone else, who was openly ace, explain what being ace was like. Yeah, I know, I had to hear someone else explain my own sexuality for me to get it, which sounds incredibly dumb, but sometimes it's hard to know if a word fits if you don't really understand what that word means. And I don't mean just its definition, I had known about the word asexual and what it meant for years, but instead, what the experience was like on a personal level. What I didn't realize at the time, and what I think a lot of people don't realize, is that being ace is a lot more complicated than it sounds. Most people think of being ace as the lack of a sexual orientation, mostly because that's a very convenient way to think of it. But in reality, it's just as weird and wobbly as any other kind of orientation. As an example, the level of discomfort ace people feel towards sex can cover basically the entire spectrum, from people who get physically ill from looking at such imagery, to people that actually enjoy it because it brings them closer to their partner. Because, and I can't stress this enough, the willingness or enjoyment of the act has nothing to do with being ace, only the attraction part. And that's not even touching on gray aces, who only feel sexual attraction weakly or very rarely, or demisexuals, who only feel sexual attraction after forming a strong emotional or romantic bond with someone, both of which often fall under the umbrella of ace. or how asexual people can feel arousal and may still engage in sexual activities purely as a means to relieve stress or have fun. TLDR, being ace is frickin' complicated, which is a big reason why I'm making this video, as sharing your own experiences can help others in ways you don't expect. So, if you can relate to anything I've just talked about, I want you to know that, you're not broken. Asexuality in all its forms is just as valid of a sexual orientation as any other, and you shouldn't feel ashamed that you don't want something that others tell you that you should. And I think that's a lesson everyone can afford to learn, even those who aren't ace. The second flag in the artwork I want to draw your attention to is the only one that's actually a flag, the yellow, white, purple, and black colors of the non-binary flag that Nan is waving. As should be pretty self-explanatory from the name, people who are non-binary do not identify with the typical binary gender distinction of male and female. This may be difficult to wrap your head around, but there's actually more than two options. Crazy, I know. Now, non-binary is a pretty broad label, and a lot of people use more specific terms to describe themselves, such as gender fluid, one's gender identity changing over time, agender, not identifying with any gender, or novigender, gender identity being impossible to describe, which all fall under the umbrella of non-binary. And no, I didn't make any of those up, all of them are real. Just like being ace, non-binary can encompass a wide range of different experiences. I, however, don't fully understand what's going on with my own gender identity. The only thing that I know for certain is that I don't identify with either male or female, which is why I chose to use non-binary instead of something that might be more precise. Maybe that will change in the future and I'll be like, of course, I'm demigender, how could I be so foolish? Or whatever, but for now, non-binary feels like it describes me just fine. Honestly, this is probably the most outwardly obvious part of my sexuality, the person with a violently androgynous persona who makes art of equally androgynous characters, I wonder what their gender identity could be. Not to mention that said persona is canonically a shapeshifter and identifies as agender, so yeah, I'm not hard to read. If there's a point to all this, it's that you have permission to use whatever damn terms you like to describe yourself, regardless of what other people think or say. Nobody knows what it feels like to be you, except you. Trust your gut and use whatever words you like. But don't be afraid to let those words change either. Discovering yourself takes time. An entire lifetime, in fact. And you don't have to have it all figured out right away. Speaking of not having it all figured out, the final and most tenuous of color sequences is the pink, yellow, and blue armband that Nan is wearing. These are the colors of the pansexual flag. Those who identify as pansexual are sexually attracted to individuals regardless of their gender. This doesn't mean they're attracted to everybody, just that their attraction does not align with a specific gender or biological sex. But wait, you might be saying, didn't you just say you identify as ace? How can you be asexual and pansexual at the same time? Good question! The answer is, I don't. Let me explain. I don't identify as pansexual, but instead as panromantic, which, yes, is an important distinction. One is a sexual orientation, while the other is a romantic orientation, hence the difference in wording. They operate on the same principles, but for different kinds of attraction. For a lot of people, these two attractions align with each other, which makes the distinction unnecessary, but for a lot of other people, they don't. As an example, a person, like myself, may be asexual, but not aromantic, meaning they aren't attracted to a person based on the idea of sex, but are attracted to people based on the idea of a romantic relationship. They want a partner, they just don't want one so they can bang them. This can also go in reverse. Someone could be aromantic, but not asexual, or any other combination of sexual and romantic orientation that you can think of. And probably quite a few that you can't. This all might sound super complicated, but frankly, the human experience is one of, if not the most complicated thing you could possibly try and understand. Relativity and quantum mechanics ain't got nothing on the human mind. Seriously, I know a lot about all three of those subjects, and I'd still feel more confident describing how subatomic particles interact than explaining what makes a person a person. But none of that explains why I chose to use the pansexual flag in my artwork. The answer is actually quite simple. There is no officially recognized flag for the panromantic orientation, and although the flag isn't strictly just for the sexual orientation, it is typically referred to as such by most people. Plus, having that situation is just a great excuse to explain the difference between sexual and romantic attraction for those who aren't familiar or who still don't get it. But that's not actually the reason why I said this flag was tenuous. In reality, I don't really know what my romantic orientation is. I've never been in a romantic relationship before, and being ace and non-binary makes my feelings incredibly hard to disentangle. Like, I know I don't want to have sex with people, but I still feel arousal towards the opposite sex, which is exactly as confusing as it sounds. Then there's the whole, do I want to date this person, or do I want to be this person thing from being non-binary, which is incredibly common, by the way. Plus, I feel like I'm demi-romantic as well, because not all romantic or sexual attractions are mutually exclusive, as if things weren't confusing enough. But honestly, I don't really know, and you know what? That's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out. It took me nearly 2 decades to figure this much out, and as you can probably tell, I'm not certain about most of it. You should give yourself the time and the patience to explore, because in the end, figuring out your identity isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. The only way you're making it to the finish line is by taking things at your own pace. And when it comes to talking about your own identity, remember, there's no such thing as a wrong answer. The only wrong answer is the one someone else makes for you. And there you go, one beautiful Pride artwork, if I do say so myself, and a little bit about me and my experience as a queer individual. I hope that by sharing, I've made you feel better about yourself or the world. But if not, I hope at least the art was nice. Because personally, I'm really happy with how this illustration turned out. I think it has the perfect combination of cute, sappy positivity and uncomfortable in-your-face reality. But what do you guys think? Does my ability to draw clothes and faces suck as much as I think it does? And are there any other important lessons you've learned about coming out that I might have missed? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, you can also give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more like it in the future. My current schedule involves posting at least once a month, so you can expect a slow but steady stream of art-related content to help inspire you and lift your spirits. If that sounds like something you don't want to miss, you can click the bell icon and select all from the drop-down list to be notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!